The morning Evelyn Mercer decided to marry a complete stranger, the sky was the color of old bruises. She stood in the kitchen of the ranch house her grandfather built, staring at numbers that refused to make sense no matter how many times she reworked them. Debt, feed costs, veterinary bills from the livestock disease that swept through last winter and killed 40% of their herd, her father's medical expenses, mounting like snowdrifts against the side of a barn, 29 years old, and she was drowning. "You're being a fool, Evelyn." Martha Chen stood in the doorway, arms crossed, looking at her the way practical women look at dreamers about to walk off a cliff. Martha ran the general store in town and had known Evelyn since she was 8 years old and still believed the ranch would last forever. "I don't have a choice, Martha." "There's always a choice. Sell, move east, start over somewhere that isn't trying to kill you." Evelyn's hands flattened against the table. "This land belonged to my grandfather. He fought for it, built everything from nothing. I'm not the one who walks away." "Your grandfather's dead, honey. So's your mother. And your father's got maybe 6 months if Doc Harrison's being generous." Martha's voice softened, but the truth in it stayed sharp. "You staying here out of love or just stubbornness?" Evelyn didn't answer because she didn't know anymore. The Mercer Ranch sat at the northern edge of the frontier, where winters could kill a grown man if he got caught unprepared and summers baked the ground so hard you could break a shovel trying to dig. It was brutal country, beautiful in the way dangerous things often are, all endless sky and tall grass and the kind of quiet that made city people nervous. Her father used to say the land chose you, not the other way around, that some people were born belonging to a place and leaving would be like cutting off a limb. Evelyn had believed him once. Now she just felt tired. "There's someone here to see you," Martha said, her tone shifting into something careful. "Been waiting outside for 20 minutes, wouldn't come in, said he'd only talk to you." "Who?" "Didn't give a name, just said he heard you were looking for solutions." Evelyn felt something cold settle in her stomach. Word traveled fast in small towns, and desperation smelled like blood in the water. Plenty of men would see a failing ranch and a woman alone as an opportunity. She'd already turned down 3 marriage proposals in the last month, 2 from local farmers looking to expand their property, 1 from a widower in town who stared at her like she was livestock he was considering purchasing. "Tell him I'm not interested." "Evelyn, I said no, Martha." But Martha didn't leave. She just stood there with that look on her face, the one that meant she knew something Evelyn didn't, and wasn't sure whether sharing it would help or hurt. "He's not like the others," Martha said finally. "I've seen a lot of men roll through here trying to take advantage of situations. This one, he's different." "Different how?" "Quiet. Real quiet. The kind that makes you think he's used to being around trouble." Martha paused. "And he's got money. I can tell. Not showing off money. The dangerous kind." Evelyn closed the ledger. "Fine. 5 minutes." She walked out onto the porch and stopped. The man standing beside the fence was tall, broad across the shoulders, wearing a coat that had seen hard use but was well maintained. Dark hair, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of face that didn't give anything away. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the ranch, the barns, the corrals, the fields stretching out toward the mountains, like he was memorizing it. "You wanted to talk," Evelyn said. "So, talk." The man turned. His eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds, and when they met hers she felt something strange twist in her chest. Not fear exactly, recognition maybe, except she'd never seen this man before in her life. "Miss Mercer," he said. His voice was low, careful. "My name is Cole Braddock. I heard you were in trouble." "That's not exactly a secret." "No, ma'am, it's not." He glanced back at the ranch. "I also heard you're the kind of person who doesn't quit even when quitting's the smart choice." "You come here to tell me I'm stupid? Because I've already got people lined up for that." Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face, but it didn't last. "No, ma'am. I came here to offer you a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where your ranch survives and you keep your land." Evelyn crossed her arms. "And what do you get?" Cole met her eyes. "A wife." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "Excuse me?" "I'll pay off every debt you owe, set up credit lines for feed and veterinary care, hire workers to help run things until you're back on your feet. All of it." He said it like he was discussing fence repair, calm and matter-of-fact. In exchange, you marry me. Evelyn laughed. It came out harsh and a little wild. You're insane. Maybe. I don't even know you. No, ma'am. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You think I'm just going to marry some stranger who shows up and offers money? What kind of woman do you think I am? The kind who's got about 3 weeks before the bank forecloses. Cole's voice stayed level. The kind who'd walk through fire before admitting she needs help. The kind who's been carrying this place on her back since she was 18 and won't stop even when it's killing her. The accuracy of it hit like a slap. How do you know? He said, because I've been paying attention, he said quietly. Evelyn stared at him. There was something off about this entire situation, something she couldn't name. The way he stood, the way he looked at the ranch like he'd seen it before, the way he seemed to know things he shouldn't. Why? She asked. Why would you do this? Would you? For the first time, Cole hesitated. Something flickered in his expression, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. Let's just say I've got my reasons. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now, Miss Mercer. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of coming rain. Evelyn's mind raced. This was crazy. Marrying a stranger, tying her life to someone she'd met 5 minutes ago. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a trap, a con, something that would end badly. But she looked at the ranch, at the house her grandfather built, at the land her family bled for, and she knew she was out of options. This would be a business arrangement, she said slowly. Nothing more. Yes, ma'am. You'd have your own space. We'd be married on paper, but that's all. Understood. And if you ever try anything, I won't. The certainty in his voice surprised her. Evelyn took a breath. I need time to think about it. How much time you got before the bank comes calling? 3 weeks, like you said. Cole nodded. I'll be back in 2 days. You can give me your answer then. He turned to leave, and Evelyn heard herself say, Wait. He stopped. Why me? The question came out quieter than she intended. There are plenty of women in town looking for husbands. Women without failing ranches and debt, and why me? Cole looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was so soft she almost didn't hear it. Because you matter, Miss Mercer. You always have. Then he was gone, walking down the road toward town, leaving Evelyn standing on the porch with the feeling that her entire world had just shifted, and she didn't understand how or why. Martha found her still standing there 20 minutes later. So? He proposed. Proposed what? Marriage, in exchange for saving the ranch. Martha's eyes widened. Sweet Jesus, and you said? I said I'd think about it. Evelyn. I know how it sounds, Martha. Believe me, I know. But that night, lying awake in her childhood bedroom with rain hammering against the windows, Evelyn couldn't stop thinking about the way Cole Braddock had looked at the ranch. Like he'd seen it before. Like he knew it. Like he'd been waiting years to come back. 2 days later, Cole returned. Evelyn met him in the barn this time, where her father wouldn't overhear. Thomas Mercer was having one of his bad days, confused and fragile, and she didn't want to explain this until she understood it herself. I'll do it, she said without preamble, but I need to know what you're really after. Cole leaned against the barn wall. I told you. You told me nothing, and I'm not an idiot. Men don't just show up offering to save strangers out of charity. So what is this really about? You trying to steal my land? Planning to work me to death and take over? What's the angle? There's no angle. Everyone's got an angle. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Your father ever mention a ranch hand who worked here about 15 years back? Winter of 1841, maybe into 42? Evelyn frowned. No. Why? That was me. The barn seemed to hold its breath. What? I was 17. Came through looking for work. Your father hired me on for the winter season, paid me fair, treated me decent. I fixed fences, mucked stalls, helped with the horses. Cole's voice stayed calm, but something underneath it wasn't. You were 14. Used to bring water out to the workers during harvest. Evelyn's chest tightened. I don't remember you. I didn't expect you to. Then why? Because I remember you. He met her eyes. And when I heard this place was failing, I came back. That's all there is to it. It wasn't all. Evelyn could hear the pieces he wasn't saying, but before she could push, Cole straightened. You want conditions? Here they are. I'll pay the bank tomorrow. Set up accounts at the feed store and the vet. I'll work the ranch like any other hand. No special treatment. We get married quick and quiet, no fuss. And when you don't need me anymore, I'll leave. No questions, no arguments. You'll keep the land and I'll disappear. That's insane. Why would you agree to that? Because keeping you safe is enough. The way he said it made something in Evelyn's stomach twist. This wasn't romantic. It was something heavier, older, like a promise made to himself years ago that he'd finally found a way to keep. Okay, she heard herself say. We do this your way. Cole nodded once. I'll handle the arrangements. And that was how Evelyn Mercer agreed to marry a ghost. Boati. The wedding happened 4 days later. Small ceremony, no celebration. Justice of the Peace Henderson performed it in his office with Martha and Doc Harrison serving as witnesses. Evelyn wore a simple gray dress. Cole wore the same coat he'd arrived in. The words felt distant, like they were happening to someone else. Do you, Evelyn Mercer, take this man? I do. Do you, Cole Braddock, take this woman? I do. Henderson pronounced them married, and Evelyn felt nothing. No joy, no fear, just the weight of a choice she couldn't take back. Afterward, Martha pulled her aside while Cole signed papers at the clerk's office. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He seems steady, that's something. He seems like he's carrying secrets, Martha. Most people are, honey. That night, Cole moved his things into the small room off the kitchen that used to belong to the foreman back when the ranch employed more than just seasonal workers. He didn't ask for more, didn't push, just quietly settled in like he'd always been there. Evelyn lay awake in her own room, listening to the house settle, trying to figure out how her life had become something she didn't recognize. 3 floors down, Cole Braddock sat on the edge of his bed with a small metal box in his hands, unopened, and stared at the wall like a man who'd spent 15 years waiting for something he never thought he'd find. The next morning, Evelyn woke to the sound of hammering. She stumbled outside to find Cole repairing the fence line along the eastern pasture, working with the kind of efficiency that came from years of practice. He'd already fed the horses, mucked 3 stalls, and fixed the water pump that had been broken for 2 weeks. You didn't have to. Ranch doesn't run itself, ma'am. You can call me Evelyn. We're married. Cole glanced at her, then back to the fence. Evelyn. The way he said her name felt wrong, too familiar, like he'd said it 1,000 times before when she wasn't listening. Over the following weeks, a strange routine developed. Cole worked from before dawn until after sunset. He repaired everything that had fallen into disrepair over the past 2 years. Barn doors, broken equipment, rotted beams in the horse stable. He moved through the ranch like he knew exactly where everything was supposed to be, which should have been impossible because he'd only worked here one winter 15 years ago. Evelyn watched him, studied him, tried to figure out what he wasn't saying. He was good with the horses, especially the difficult ones. They calmed around him in ways they didn't with anyone else. He handled the ranch's meanest mare, a gray beast named Tempest who'd thrown 4 riders in the past year, like she was a house cat. How'd you do that? Evelyn asked one afternoon, watching him gentle the horse without even trying. Cole shrugged. Just patience? Nobody else can get near her. Then nobody else had enough patience. But that wasn't it. Evelyn could see the way Tempest responded to him, like she remembered something, like she trusted him, like she'd known him before. The thought made Evelyn's skin prickle. One evening, she found Cole in her father's study. Thomas Mercer sat in his chair by the window, staring out at nothing the way he did on bad days. Cole sat across from him, not speaking, just keeping him company. When Thomas noticed her, his eyes focused briefly. Evelyn, where's the boy? What boy, Dad? The one who fixed the fence last winter, the quiet one. He was good with horses. Thomas frowned. What was his name? Evelyn's blood went cold. Cole stood smoothly. I should check on the livestock. He left before she could say anything. Evelyn knelt beside her father's chair. Dad, what boy are you talking about? But Thomas had already drifted away again, lost in whatever fog his mind lived in now. That night, Evelyn waited until Cole finished in the barn and cornered him by the tool shed. My father remembers you. Cole's expression didn't change. He's sick, Evelyn. He's probably... Don't do that. She stepped closer. He asked about the boy who fixed fences, the one who was good with horses. That was you, wasn't it? You weren't just some random ranch hand passing through. Cole's jaw tightened. What aren't you telling me? Evelyn demanded. Because I married you, and I deserve to know what I signed up for. For a long moment, Cole just looked at her. Then he said, You want the truth? Yes. I spent that winter here 15 years ago, and it was the best 4 months of my life. Your father treated me like I mattered. You... He stopped, something breaking in his voice. You were kind to me when you didn't have to be. And when I left, I spent every year after that trying to forget, because I knew I'd never be able to come back. But you did come back, because I heard you were drowning and I couldn't stay away anymore. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw what he'd been hiding. I told you I had my reasons, Evelyn. This is it. I came back because the thought of you losing this place was worse than anything else I could imagine. Evelyn's breath caught. You don't even know me. I know enough. You know a 14-year-old girl who brought you water 15 years ago. That's not enough to be... You're right, it's not. Cole's voice gentled. But I'm not asking you for anything, Evelyn. I'm just trying to help. That's all this is. He left her standing there in the dark, and Evelyn realized with a sick lurch that she believed him, which somehow made everything worse. The first real crack appeared 3 weeks into the marriage. Evelyn went looking for a missing bridle and found Cole in the storage room behind the barn, holding something she hadn't seen in years. A broken pocket watch. Her father's pocket watch. The one that stopped working when Evelyn was 12, and he'd kept it in a drawer in his desk, too sentimental to throw away but too broken to fix. What are you doing with that? Her voice came out sharper than she meant. Cole looked up. I was going to repair it. How did you even know where it was? He stopped, frowned. I thought I saw your father looking for it the other day. That's my father's desk, in his study. You went through his things? No, I didn't. Cole set the watch down carefully. I'm sorry, I should have asked. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the way he'd known exactly where to find it. The problem was the growing list of things Cole knew that he shouldn't. The hidden trail through the north pasture that Evelyn used to take as a kid because it cut 10 minutes off the walk to the creek. The loose board in the barn loft where she used to hide when she wanted to be alone. The way he called the horses by names they hadn't been called in years. Small things. Easy to dismiss individually. Together, they formed a picture that didn't make sense. That night, a storm rolled in, the kind that turned the sky black and made the whole ranch feel like it might blow away. Rain hammered the roof. Wind screamed through the eaves. Evelyn was in the kitchen making coffee when she heard Cole's voice from the other room. It's okay, Evie. Storm's not going to hurt you. She froze. Evie. Nobody called her that. Her mother had years ago, before she died. But after that, Evelyn had insisted everyone use her full name because Evie felt like a child's name, and she was trying so hard to be grown up. She hadn't been called Evie in 15 years. Evelyn walked into the living room. Cole was there, crouched beside her father's chair, speaking softly. Thomas was agitated, hands shaking, eyes wide with the kind of fear that came when his mind couldn't separate past from present. The storm, Thomas whispered. The storm's coming. I know, Cole said quietly. But the house is strong. You built it to last, Mr. Mercer. It's not going anywhere. Thomas's breathing slowed, and Evelyn stood in the doorway, watching a stranger calm her father with words in a tone that shouldn't have worked, and felt the floor drop out from under her. Cole looked up and saw her. Their eyes met. And Evelyn said very carefully, What did you just call me? Cole went still. When you were talking to my father, you called me Evie. I didn't. Yes, you did. She stepped closer, heart pounding. Nobody's called me that since I was 14, so how do you know that name? Cole stood slowly. Evelyn, tell me the truth. Right now. All of it. The storm hammered against the windows. Thomas dozed in his chair, the panic forgotten. And Cole Braddock looked at the woman he'd married like a man who'd been caught and didn't know whether to run or confess. "I told you I spent a winter here," he said finally. "What I didn't say was that I spent most of that winter watching you." Evelyn's stomach twisted. "Not like that," Cole said quickly. I was just a kid. Lonely, broke, trying to figure out what the hell I was doing with my life. And you were..." He stopped. Started again. "You were kind. That's all. You brought us water, asked if we needed anything, smiled like you actually cared whether we were okay. Most people don't do that for ranch hands. That still doesn't explain..." "I noticed things, the way you'd take the North Trail to the creek, the way you'd hide in the barn loft when you were upset, the nickname your mother called you before she died." Cole's voice roughened. "I paid attention, Evelyn. Maybe too much. And when I left, I didn't forget." The confession hung in the air between them. Evelyn felt like she was standing on the edge of something she didn't understand. "That's not normal," she said. "I know. You held on to all of that for 15 years? "Yes." "Why?" Cole met her eyes. "Because you were the first person who made me feel like I wasn't invisible." The storm raged outside. Inside, the silence felt louder. Evelyn didn't know what to say. This should feel creepy, wrong, like something out of a nightmare. But the way Cole looked at her wasn't possessive or obsessive. It was just sad, like he'd carried something too heavy for too long and finally set it down. "I didn't come back to scare you," Cole said quietly. "I came back because I heard you needed help, and I thought maybe I could give it. That's all. If it's too much, if you want me to leave, I will." Evelyn should say yes, should tell him to pack his things and go. This was too strange, too intense, too much. But instead she heard herself say, "Stay." Cole looked at her, surprised. "I need the help," Evelyn said. "And you haven't done anything wrong, just no more secrets. If you know something about this place, or my family, or me, I want to hear it. Deal?" "Deal." "Good." She turned toward the stairs, then paused. "And Cole?" "Yes?" "Don't call me Evie. That's not who I am anymore." She left him standing there and climbed the stairs to her room, where she lay awake for hours trying to figure out whether she'd just made the smartest decision of her life or the most dangerous. In the room off the kitchen, Cole sat on his bed with his head in his hands and wondered if he'd just destroyed the only good thing he'd tried to build in 15 years. The next morning, everything changed. A rider came up the road at dawn carrying a notice from the Valley Land Office. Evelyn met him on the porch, still half asleep, and took the envelope with dread pooling in her stomach. The letter was short. Notice of claim dispute. The Western Frontier Development Corporation, under direction of Mr. Vernon Hale, has filed ownership documents regarding the following properties. The list included half the independent ranches in the valley, including the Mercer land. Evelyn read it twice, then a third time, trying to make the words mean something different. "What is it?" Cole appeared beside her, already dressed, already alert. She handed him the letter without speaking. He read it once, his expression darkening with each line. "Vernon Hale," he said quietly. "I should have known." "You know him?" "I know of him. Cattle baron. Operates out of Denver. Controls supply routes through half the northern territories. He's been buying up land for years, usually through intimidation or forged documents." Cole's jaw tightened. If he's targeting this valley, it means he wants the trade route access. Can he do this? Just claim he owns land that's been in families for generations? If he's got corrupt officials backing him, yes. Evelyn felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. "So what do we do?" Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "We fight." "How? We don't have money for lawyers. We don't have political connections. We have each other." His voice was steady. "And we have the truth. That counts for something." Evelyn wanted to believe him, but looking at that letter, seeing the name Vernon Hale printed in official ink, she felt the weight of what was coming. This wasn't just about saving a failing ranch anymore. This was war. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, Cole Braddock had known this was coming all along. The town meeting happened 3 days later in the church basement because it was the only building large enough to hold everyone who showed up. Evelyn counted 42 ranchers and their families packed into wooden pews, all holding the same letter she'd received. The air smelled like wet wool and fear. Vernon Hale hadn't bothered to attend himself. He'd sent a representative instead, a thin man in an expensive suit named Garrett, who spoke with the practiced calm of someone delivering bad news for a living. The Western Frontier Development Corporation has filed legitimate ownership claims on the properties listed in your notices, Garrett said, standing at the front like a preacher at a funeral. These claims are backed by Territorial Land Office documentation dating back to original survey grants. If you believe there's been an error, you're welcome to dispute it through proper legal channels. Legal channels? Old Samuel Ortiz stood up, shaking. He'd run cattle in this valley for 30 years. You're saying we gotta hire lawyers to prove we own land we've been working since before you were born? I'm saying the law requires verification of ownership, Mr. Ortiz. If your claims are legitimate, the process will confirm that. And if we can't afford lawyers? Garrett's expression didn't change. Then I suggest you consider Mr. Hale's buyout offer. He's prepared to pay fair market value for any properties in dispute. Fair market value, someone muttered. That's a hell of a joke. Evelyn sat near the back with Cole beside her, watching the room fracture. Some families looked angry, others looked broken. A few were already calculating whether they could afford to fight or if it was smarter to take whatever Hale offered and run. Martha Chen stood up. What happens if we refuse to sell? Then the legal process continues, could take months, maybe years. Garrett shrugged. During that time, you'd be unable to secure credit or sell any livestock, since the ownership would be in dispute. Most banks won't lend against contested property, which meant they'd be strangled slowly. No money for feed, no way to ship cattle to market, just a long, grinding collapse while lawyers argued over papers. It was brilliant in its cruelty. This is theft, Evelyn said, loud enough that the whole room turned to look at her. You know it. We know it. Hale's using the legal system to steal land he has no right to. Garrett smiled, polite and cold. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Braddock. I hope you have evidence to support it. The use of her married name felt like a weapon, a reminder that she was new to this, that she didn't have the decades of history other families could claim. Cole's hand found hers under the bench, squeezed once. A warning or support, she wasn't sure. We'll get evidence, Evelyn said. I look forward to seeing it. Garrett gathered his papers. Mr. Hale will keep his buyout offer open for 60 days. After that, anyone still in dispute will need to settle things in court. Good evening. He left through the side door, and the room erupted. Arguments, accusations. Samuel Ortiz shouting that they should ride to Denver and settle this the old way. His son trying to calm him down. Women crying, children asking questions nobody wanted to answer. Evelyn stood up and walked out into the cold night air, needing space to breathe. Cole followed. You shouldn't have said that, he told her quietly. About the theft. Now Hale knows you're going to be a problem. Good, I want him to know. Evelyn thought, don't, she spun to face him. Don't tell me to be careful or smart or whatever else you're about to say. My family built this ranch from nothing. I'm not handing it over to some bastard in Denver because he's got lawyers and money. Cole studied her face. You really think we can win this? I don't know, but I have to try. Something shifted in his expression. All right then, we try. Just like that? You're my wife. Your fight is my fight. He said it simple and direct, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. So where do we start? Evelyn took a breath, thinking. The land office? Those documents Garrett mentioned, the survey grants? If they're forged, there'll be mistakes. Dates that don't line up, signatures that don't match. We find the proof, we can expose him. Land office is in Canyon Ridge, 2 days' ride from here. Then we leave tomorrow. But when they got back to the ranch, they found Thomas Mercer collapsed on the floor of his study, barely breathing. Doc Harrison came within the hour, examined him with the kind of careful gentleness that told Evelyn everything she needed to know. His heart's giving out, Harrison said quietly. I'm sorry, Evelyn. Could be days, could be hours. There's nothing I can do except make him comfortable. Evelyn sat beside her father's bed that night, holding his hand, watching him struggle for each breath. Cole brought her coffee she didn't drink and offered to take over so she could rest. She refused. I need to be here. I know. But around midnight, exhaustion won. Evelyn fell asleep in the chair, and when she woke an hour later, Cole was sitting on the floor beside her father's bed, talking in a low voice. Did right by me that winter, Mr. Mercer. More than you know. Gave me work when nobody else would. Treated me like I mattered. Cole's voice was rough. I wanted you to know. I'll take care of her. Your daughter. I'll make sure she doesn't lose this place. That's a promise. Thomas's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow, but his hand twitched slightly, like he'd heard. Evelyn's throat tightened. Cole glanced over and saw her awake. Something embarrassed flickered across his face. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. She stood, joints protesting. I should check on the horses. It was a lie, and they both knew it. She just needed air that didn't smell like dying. Outside, the stars were cold and distant. Evelyn walked to the barn and stood in the doorway, trying not to scream. Her father was dying. Her ranch was being stolen. And the only person helping her was a man who'd spent 15 years carrying a memory of someone she didn't even remember being. None of it made sense. She heard footsteps behind her but didn't turn around. He asked about you once, Cole said. That winter, your father. He was teaching me how to break ice on the water troughs, and he just stopped in the middle of it and said, my daughter's going to be something special. She's got her mother's kindness and my stubbornness. That's a dangerous combination. Evelyn closed her eyes. He was right, Cole continued. You are something special, Evelyn, even if you don't see it. Stop. The word came out harsher than she meant. Just stop saying things like that. This isn't. I know what this is. His voice stayed quiet. I'm not asking for anything, remember? Then why are you here? Really? Because the story about working one winter 15 years ago doesn't explain this. It doesn't explain why you came back or why you married me or why you're standing in a barn at midnight telling me I'm special when you barely know me. Cole was silent for a long time. Then he said, after I left here, I spent 3 years working lumber camps in the north. Brutal work. Men died regularly. I saved up enough money to buy a small piece of land near the border, tried to build something that mattered. Raiders burned it down 6 months later, killed my partner, took everything. Evelyn turned to look at him. I joined a militia after that, Cole continued, staring at the dark fields beyond the barn. Fought in some places I'd rather forget. Did things I'm not proud of. And through all of it, every violent, ugly chapter, I'd think about that winter here, about your father teaching me honest work, about you bringing water to the hands and smiling like we deserved kindness. His jaw tightened. It kept me human, Evelyn. That memory. When everything else was trying to make me into something I didn't want to be, I'd remember what decency looked like. So when I heard you were in trouble, I came back. Not because I expect you to love me or even like me, just because the thought of that memory disappearing, of you losing this place, felt like losing the last good thing I had left. The confession hung in the cold air between them. Evelyn didn't know what to say. This was bigger than she'd understood, more complicated. Not obsession or romance, but something stranger and sadder, a drowning man clinging to the memory of shore. I'm not what you remember, she said finally. That girl who brought water, she's gone. I'm tired and angry and running out of options. I'm not special, Cole. I'm just desperate. You're wrong. He met her eyes. But I'm not going to argue about it. Before Evelyn could respond, a sound came from the house. Martha's voice calling her name, urgent and afraid. They ran. Thomas Mercer died at 3 a.m, with his daughter holding one hand and his wife's photograph pressed against his chest. His last words were barely a whisper. Don't let them take it, Evie. Then he was gone. Evelyn didn't cry. Not then. She sat beside the body of her father and felt something in her chest turn to stone. Later, Martha would tell her she stayed there for 2 hours without moving. That Cole had to physically lift her away so Doc Harrison could prepare the body. She didn't remember any of it. The funeral was small. Most of the town came, but half of them looked at Evelyn like they were already measuring her for failure. How long before she sold? How long before she gave up and left like everyone knew she would? Vernon Hale sent flowers. The card read, My condolences on your loss, the buyout offer stands. Evelyn tore it into pieces. After the burial, she stood in her father's study and made a decision. She was going to Canyon Ridge. She was going to find proof that Hale's documents were forged, and she was going to burn his empire down around him. Cole found her there an hour later, packing her father's ledgers into a saddlebag. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow at dawn. It's 2 days to Canyon Ridge, maybe 3 if the weather turns. We find the land office records, make copies of anything that doesn't match Hale's claims, and bring it back. And if there's nothing to find, then we make something up." She looked at him. "I'm past caring about rules, Cole. They want to steal my land with fake documents? I'll fight back the same way." Cole nodded slowly. "All right. But we do it smart. No rushing in. We get proof first, then we act." "Fine. And Evelyn?" "What?" "If this goes bad, if Hale comes after us, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "That you'll run. No heroics, no last stands. Just run and don't look back." Evelyn stared at him. "You think I'm going to abandon you? I think you're the one who matters, not me." "That's not—" She stopped, frustrated. "We're in this together. You said that yourself." "I meant it. But if it comes down to choosing between the ranch and your life, I choose your life every time." His voice was firm. "Promise me, Evelyn." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wasn't some fragile thing that needed protecting, but the look in his eyes stopped her. "Fine, I promise." "Thank you." They left before sunrise, riding north under a sky the color of old iron. The weather held for the first day, but by the second afternoon, snow started falling, light at first, then heavier. By the time they reached Canyon Ridge, the world was white and silent. The land office was a squat brick building on the main street, staffed by a bored clerk who barely looked up when they entered. "Help you?" "We need to see territorial survey records," Evelyn said. "Original land grants for the Cedar Valley region." The clerk sighed. "Those are archived. Take me an hour to pull them." "We'll wait." It took 3 hours. When the clerk finally returned with a stack of yellowed documents, Evelyn spread them across the table and started comparing them to her father's deed. The forgeries were good, really good. Someone had gone to significant effort to make everything look legitimate, matching paper stock, period-appropriate ink, even weathering to suggest age. But they'd made mistakes, small ones. A signature that didn't match the territorial governor's known handwriting, a date that placed the survey 6 months before the surveyor in question had even arrived in the territory. Reference marks that didn't align with the official filing system. "Look at this." Evelyn pointed to a notation on one document. "This claims the survey was completed in March of 1838, but the surveyor, James Whitmore, didn't start working this region until September that year. I know because my grandfather's original grant references Whitmore's survey, and it's dated October 1838. Cole leaned closer, studying the papers. "You're right. But how do we prove it?" "We take copies, compare them to the historical records in Denver, show the inconsistencies to a judge who isn't on Hale's payroll." "That's going to take time and money." "I don't care." They spent the rest of the afternoon making careful copies of every relevant document. The clerk charged them for the service, grumbling about the extra work. Evelyn paid without complaint. As they left the land office, Cole caught her arm. "We're being watched." Evelyn followed his gaze. Across the street, a man in a dark coat leaned against a storefront, pretending to read a newspaper. His attention was fixed on them. "One of Hale's?" "Probably." "What do we do?" "We act normal, finish our business, leave tomorrow like we planned." Cole's voice stayed calm. "If they wanted to stop us, they'd have done it already. They're just keeping track." But that night at the boarding house, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the documents, the proof they'd found, the long road ahead. Around midnight, she heard a knock on her door. Cole stood in the hallway fully dressed. "Get your things. We're leaving now." "What? Why?" "Because I just saw 3 men ride in from the south. Same men who were watching us this afternoon, and they're armed." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "You think they're going to—" "I think we don't wait to find out." They packed fast and quiet, leaving through the boarding house's back entrance. The streets were empty, snow falling thick enough to muffle sound. Their horses were still at the stable 2 blocks away. They were halfway there when a voice called out behind them. Mrs. Braddock? Mr. Braddock? Leaving so soon? Evelyn turned. The man from earlier stood in the street, flanked by two others. All three had their coats open, hands resting near their belts. We've got no business with you, Cole said evenly. Maybe not. But Mr. Hale has business with anyone poking around land office records. The man smiled. He wanted me to deliver a message, stop asking questions, take the buyout, go home. And if we don't? Then accidents happen, especially on dangerous roads in winter. Cole's hand moved slightly, and Evelyn realized with cold certainty that he was armed, had been this whole time. We'll take our chances, Cole said. That's a mistake, probably, but it's our mistake to make. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the lead man shrugged. Your funeral. They turned and walked away, disappearing into the falling snow. Evelyn exhaled shakily. They just let us go? For now, but they'll follow us, make sure we leave town. Maybe try something once we're far enough from witnesses. Cole started walking again. Come on, we need to move. They reached the stable, saddled their horses in record time, and rode out of Canyon Ridge heading south. The snow was coming down harder now, visibility dropping to maybe 30 feet. Perfect cover for an ambush. Cole set a brutal pace, pushing through the storm for hours until Evelyn's hands were numb and her face burned with cold. Finally, as dawn started turning the eastern sky gray, he pulled them off the main road onto a narrow trail heading west. This isn't the way back, Evelyn said. I know. We're going to circle around, come at the valley from a different direction, make them think we got lost in the storm. Did we? No. He glanced back at her. But they don't know that. They rode for another 3 hours before Cole finally stopped in a small canyon sheltered from the wind. While he tended the horses, Evelyn pulled out the copies they'd made, checking to make sure the documents had survived the ride. Everything was there, intact. Proof that Vernon Hale's claims were built on lies. Now they just had to get it home. They made camp in the canyon, built a small fire, and ate cold rations in silence. Evelyn's exhaustion was catching up with her, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw those men in Canyon Ridge, heard their casual threat. You've done this before, she said finally. Haven't you? Run from people trying to kill you. Cole poked at the fire. More times than I'd like to remember. The militia you mentioned, the fighting. How bad was it? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, bad enough that I stopped counting bodies. Bad enough that I learned to sleep light and trust nobody. Bad enough that when it was over, I didn't recognize the person I'd become. So why come back here? Why risk turning into that person again? Because you're worth it. The simplicity of the statement broke something in Evelyn's chest. I'm not, she said. I'm nobody special, Cole. I'm a stubborn woman trying to save a dying ranch, that's all. You're wrong. He looked at her across the fire. But I already told you I'm not going to argue about it. They fell silent again. That night, Evelyn woke to the sound of horses. She sat up fast, reaching for the rifle Cole had insisted she keep close. Easy. Cole was already awake, crouched near the canyon entrance. Just passing by, 3 riders, maybe 4. Moving fast. Hale's men? Probably. They waited in the dark, barely breathing, until the sound faded into the distance. When Cole came back to the fire, Evelyn saw his hands shaking slightly. What is it? Nothing, just cold. But it wasn't cold. It was adrenaline, fear, the memory of violence. Evelyn recognized it because she was feeling the same thing, the sick awareness that they were being hunted, that one mistake could end them. We should sleep in shifts, she said. I'll take first watch. Evelyn, I'm not helpless, Cole. I know how to use a rifle, and I'm not going to sit here while you exhaust yourself protecting me. We're partners in this, remember? He studied her face, then nodded. 2 hours. Then you wake me. He was asleep within minutes, the kind of instant unconsciousness that came from years of sleeping in dangerous places. Evelyn sat with the rifle across her lap, watching the fire burn low, thinking about everything that had happened. A month ago, she'd been alone, drowning in debt, watching her father die. Now she was married to a stranger, running from hired killers, fighting a war against a man with more money and power than she could comprehend. And somehow, despite everything, she didn't feel alone anymore. The realization should have scared her. Instead, it just felt true. When she woke Cole for his shift, he sat up immediately, alert. Anything? Quiet. I think we lost them. Maybe. He took the rifle. Get some sleep. But before she lay down, Evelyn said, "Thank you for coming with me, for all of this." Cole's expression softened. "You don't need to thank me?" "Yes, I do." She fell asleep watching him keep watch, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't dream about losing everything. They reached the ranch 2 days later, exhausted and half frozen. Martha was waiting on the porch, relief flooding her face. "Thank the stars, I was starting to think." She stopped, looking between them. "You found something." "We found everything." Evelyn dismounted stiffly. "Is anyone else here?" "Just me. Most folks are keeping their heads down, waiting to see what happens." "Good. We need to talk." Inside, spread across the kitchen table, Evelyn laid out the evidence. Martha studied it carefully, her expression growing darker. "This is solid," she said finally. "Real solid. But you know what happens if you use this, right? Hale's not going to take it quietly." "I know. People could get hurt. People could die." "I know that too." Martha looked at her. "You're not the same girl who married this man a month ago." "No," Evelyn agreed. "I'm not." Over the next week, word spread quietly through the valley. Evelyn had proof, real proof. She was going to fight back. Some families rallied. Samuel Ortiz, the Harrison brothers, young William Chen and his wife, a dozen others who decided that losing their land fighting was better than losing it on their knees. But more stayed silent, too scared, too broken, too aware of what Vernon Hale could do to people who crossed him. Evelyn didn't blame them. She was scared too, but fear wasn't enough to stop anymore. The real turning point came on a cold Tuesday afternoon when a wagon rolled up to the ranch carrying someone Evelyn hadn't expected to see. Jacob Reese, her father's oldest friend, a man who'd run cattle in this valley for 40 years and had more respect than anyone else in the territory. He was also dying of consumption, everyone knew it, and had been expected to take Hale's buyout just to leave his family with something. Instead, he climbed down from the wagon, looked at Evelyn, and said, "Your father once told me that the Mercers don't back down from what's right. That true?" "Yes, sir." "Then count me in." He held out a worn ledger. "I got records going back to the original settlement, deeds, surveys, letters from the territorial government. If you're going to war with Hale, you'll need everything you can get." Evelyn took the ledger, throat tight. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly." He was right. 2 days later, someone burned down Samuel Ortiz's barn. No witnesses, no evidence, just a message. The next week, William Chen's livestock disappeared overnight. 40 head of cattle, gone. Families started getting threatening letters. Anonymous. Vague. But everyone knew where they came from. The pressure was designed to break them, to make fighting seem too expensive, too dangerous. But instead of fracturing, the alliance held. Because Evelyn did something Vernon Hale hadn't expected. She shared the evidence publicly. Copies of the forged documents, side-by-side comparisons with legitimate records, testimony from the land office clerk who'd been bribed to file false claims. All of it distributed to every newspaper in the territory, every lawyer who'd take a meeting, every politician who'd listen. Suddenly, Hale's quiet land grab was front-page news, and the man himself finally came to the valley. He arrived with 10 armed men, expensive horses, and the kind of confidence that came from never losing. Tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed. He looked like a senator or a banker, not a thief. The meeting happened at the church because neutral ground mattered. Evelyn sat across from Vernon Hale, with Cole beside her, and felt the weight of everything hanging on what happened next. Hale smiled. Polite, practiced. "Mrs. Braddock, I've heard a lot about you. I doubt it's been flattering? On the contrary, I admire persistence. It's a rare quality." He leaned back in his chair. "But persistence without wisdom is just stubbornness, and stubbornness gets people hurt. Is that a threat? It's an observation. You've caused me significant trouble with your little publicity campaign, but I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to forget the inconvenience if you're willing to be reasonable in return. What does reasonable look like to you? You drop the legal challenges. Accept my buyout offer. I'll even raise it by 20% as a gesture of goodwill, and we all move forward. And if I refuse? Hale's smile didn't change, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. Then we continue the legal process, which will cost you everything you have and take years to resolve. During which time, you won't be able to run your ranch effectively. Banks won't lend. Buyers won't purchase livestock from disputed property. You'll bleed out slowly, Mrs. Braddock, and when you finally collapse, I'll buy your land from the bank for pennies. Cole's hand found Evelyn's under the table, a steadying touch. Here's my counteroffer, Evelyn said. You withdraw your claims, publicly admit the documents were forged, and you leave this valley and never come back. Hale laughed, actually laughed. That's not how this works. Then I guess we're going to court. You can't afford court. Maybe not, but I can afford to make you a very public problem. Newspapers love stories about powerful men stealing from families. Politicians hate bad press during election years, and judges don't like being associated with fraud. Evelyn leaned forward. You might win, Mr. Hale, but it's going to cost you more than you planned. For the first time, Hale's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. The echo of Cole's words from Canyon Ridge felt deliberate, felt right. Hale stood. I gave you a chance to do this the easy way. What happens next is on you. He left, and the room felt colder after he was gone. Martha appeared from where she'd been listening near the door. Well, you just declared war on the most dangerous man in the territory. I know. He's going to come after you with everything he has. I know that too. Cole stood, his expression unreadable. Then we'd better be ready. But that night, alone in her room, Evelyn finally let herself feel the fear she'd been holding back. She sat on the edge of her bed and shook, not from cold, but from the weight of what she'd started. A knock on the door. Come in. Cole entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one and sat in the chair by the window. You all right? No, but I will be. You were brave today. I was terrified today. Brave and terrified aren't opposites. He sipped his coffee. I've seen a lot of men go into fights. The ones who survive aren't the ones who aren't scared. They're the ones who are scared and keep moving anyway. Evelyn looked at him, really looked. This quiet man who'd spent 15 years carrying a memory, who'd married her to save her ranch, who was sitting in her room at midnight drinking coffee like it was the most natural thing in the world. Why are you really here, Cole? You asked me to come in. No, I mean here, in this fight. You could have left after my father died, could have taken your money and disappeared. Nobody would have blamed you. Cole set down his cup. I told you why. You told me part of it, but there's more, isn't there? Something you're not saying. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he stood, walked to the door, and paused with his hand on the handle. There's a metal box under the floorboards in the old horse barn. 3rd stall from the left, northwest corner. If you want the whole truth, it's there. He left before she could ask what he meant. Evelyn sat in the silence he'd left behind, her heart pounding, knowing that whatever was in that box was going to change everything. Again, Evelyn waited until Cole's footsteps faded down the hallway before she moved. Her coffee sat untouched on the nightstand, growing cold while her mind raced. A metal box, hidden under the barn floor for 15 years, maybe longer. Containing what? More confessions? Evidence of something worse? She should wait until morning, should bring Martha or someone else as witness to whatever she was about to uncover. But the thought of sleeping with that knowledge burning in her skull was impossible. She pulled on her coat and boots, grabbed a lantern, and headed out into the night. The old horse barn sat at the edge of the property, half collapsed on one side from a storm 2 winters back. Nobody used it anymore except for storage. Evelyn hadn't been inside in months. The door creaked when she pushed it open, and the smell of old hay and rotting wood hit her immediately. 3rd stall from the left, northwest corner. The floorboards were loose there, warped from years of water damage. Evelyn knelt and pried them up one by one until the lantern light caught something metal glinting in the dirt below. The box was smaller than she'd expected, rusted at the edges but still intact. No lock, just a simple latch that opened with a soft click. Inside were letters, dozens of them. All addressed to her in handwriting she didn't recognize but somehow felt familiar. Evelyn pulled out the first one, dated September 1841, and began to read. Dear Evelyn, I know I'll never send this. No, you'll never read it. But I'm writing anyway because I need to put words to what I'm feeling, or I think it might burn a hole straight through me. I left the ranch today. Your father paid me fair and shook my hand and told me I'd always have work here if I needed it. I should have been grateful. I was grateful. But all I could think about was that I'd never see you again. That sounds crazy written down. You barely know I exist. You're 14. I'm 17 and about as interesting as fence wire. But you were kind to me. You smiled. You asked if I was warm enough during the cold snaps, if I'd eaten, if I needed anything. Nobody does that for people like me. I'm going north to the timber camps. Maybe I'll make something of myself. Maybe I'll die in some pointless accident like most men do out here. Either way, I wanted you to know that you mattered, even if you never know it. CB. Evelyn's hands trembled as she set the letter aside and picked up the next one. Then the next. Years of them, spanning the gaps in Cole's life like breadcrumbs through a dark forest. Letters written from lumber camps and mining towns and military outposts. Letters describing brutal work, close calls with death, the slow erosion of hope. And woven through all of it, mentions of her. Memories of that single winter. The way she'd laughed at something one of the ranch hands said. The time she'd helped him catch a spooked horse. Small moments that shouldn't have meant anything, but they had. To him, they'd meant everything. One letter, dated 1844, made her stomach twist. I killed a man yesterday. He was trying to rob the supply wagon, pulled a knife on me when I refused to hand over the payroll. It was him or me, and I chose me. But I keep seeing his face, keep thinking about how easy it was once I made the decision. I'm becoming something I don't recognize, something hard and cold. The only thing that keeps me anchored is remembering what kindness looked like. Remembering you. Is that fair to you? Probably not. You didn't ask to be my conscience. But here we are. Another from 1847, stained with what might have been whiskey or blood. I bought land today, small piece near the border. Nothing much, but it's mine. I've been thinking maybe I could build something decent. Maybe I could stop running. My partner thinks I'm crazy, says the territory's too dangerous, but I want to try anyway. I wonder sometimes what you're doing. If you're still at the ranch, if you married some local boy who deserves you more than I ever could. I hope you're happy. I hope your life is everything mine isn't. The next letter was dated 6 months later, and the handwriting was different. Shakier. The raiders came 3 nights ago, burned everything, killed Tom while he slept. I got away because I was in town, but by the time I got back there was nothing left. No house, no livestock, no future. I should feel something, rage maybe, grief, but I just feel empty. Like whatever part of me could feel those things got burned up too. Except when I think about you. Then I feel something. I don't know what to call it. Hope, maybe. The stubborn kind that won't die no matter how hard you try to kill it. Evelyn's vision blurred. She swiped at her eyes angrily, frustrated by tears she didn't want to shed. This wasn't romance. This was something sadder, lonelier. A man clinging to a memory because it was the only light he had in the dark. The later letters were shorter, more controlled, like Cole had learned to keep a lid on whatever he was feeling. 1851. I heard your father's sick. Heard the ranch is struggling. I wanted to come back then, but I didn't have anything to offer. Just violence and bad memories. You deserve better. 1853. I'm working for a freight company now. Steady work, decent pay. I've saved enough that I could help if you needed it, but showing up after 11 years would make me look insane. So I'm staying away. For your sake. 1855. I heard you're still there, still running the ranch, still fighting. I'm not surprised. You always had more backbone than the rest of us combined. The most recent letter was dated just 3 months ago. I heard the bank's coming for the ranch, heard you're running out of time. I know I have no right to interfere in your life. Know you probably don't remember me at all. But I can't stand by and watch you lose everything. I'm coming back. I'll offer help the only way I know how. And if you say no, I'll disappear again. But I have to try. Even if it makes me look like a fool. Because you matter, Evelyn. You always have. Evelyn sat back on her heels, surrounded by 15 years of confessions, and felt something crack open in her chest. This was what Martha had sensed. What Evelyn herself had felt but couldn't name. Not obsession or possession, but something quieter and more devastating. Cole Braddock had spent half his life carrying a memory of kindness through some of the worst places a man could go. And instead of letting it twist into something ugly, he'd protected it, treasured it, let it keep him human when everything else was trying to make him into something else. And now he was here, risking everything, asking for nothing in return. Evelyn gathered the letters carefully, placed them back in the box, and walked back to the house. The sky was starting to lighten in the east, dawn coming whether she was ready or not. Cole was in the kitchen, making coffee. He looked up when she entered, saw the box in her hands, and went very still. "You read them. All of them. I should have thrown them away years ago. Keeping them was—" He stopped, searching for words. "I don't know what it was. Stupid, probably." Evelyn set the box on the table between them. "Why didn't you send them?" "Because you didn't ask for that burden. Didn't ask for me to put my loneliness on you." Cole's voice was rough. "They were for me, not you. A way to get the feelings out so they didn't eat me alive. 15 years, Cole. I know. That's not normal." "I know that too." Evelyn looked at him, really looked. Saw the exhaustion in his face, the weight he carried, the careful distance he maintained even now. He'd given her everything and asked for nothing. Had married her to save her ranch, had followed her into danger without hesitation, and through all of it, he'd never once demanded that she feel anything in return. "I'm not her," Evelyn said quietly. "The girl in your memories. I'm harder now, meaner. I've had to be." "I know. And I can't promise I'll ever feel what you feel. Can't promise this will turn into something more than what it is. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" Cole met her eyes. "Just let me stand beside you, that's all. Let me help you fight. And when it's over, when you don't need me anymore, I'll go. No arguments, no regrets." The offer hung between them like a physical thing. Evelyn thought about the last month, the way Cole had appeared exactly when she needed help, the way he worked without complaint, the way he'd protected her in Canyon Ridge, stood beside her when facing hail, kept her grounded when everything felt like it was falling apart. And she thought about those letters. 15 years of a man fighting to stay decent in indecent places. "What if I don't want you to go?" The words came out before she could stop them. Cole's expression shifted. Something fragile and hopeful and terrified flickered across his face. "Evelyn, I mean it. What if, when this is over, I want you to stay?" "Then I'd stay." His voice was barely a whisper. "For as long as you'd have me." Before Evelyn could respond, the sound of horses approaching fast shattered the moment. Cole was at the window in seconds, his whole body tense. "3 riders, coming hard." Evelyn grabbed the rifle from beside the door. "Hale's men?" "Maybe." But when the riders pulled up, it wasn't hired guns. It was Samuel Ortiz and 2 of his sons, all of them wild-eyed and breathing hard. Samuel practically fell off his horse. "They're coming." Hale's bringing his whole crew, 20 men, maybe more. Word is they're hitting every ranch in the Alliance tonight. Cole swore under his breath. "When?" "Sunset. Giving us time to see them coming. Wants us scared." "It's working." Evelyn's mind raced. "We need to warn everyone, get people to defendable positions." "Already done," Samuel said. "Jacob Reese is gathering folks at his place. It's central, got good sight lines, but he sent me here because—" He looked at Cole. He said, "If anyone knows how to survive what's coming, it's you." Cole's jaw tightened. Evelyn touched his arm. "What do we do?" For a moment, Cole looked like he wanted to run, like the violence he'd spent years trying to escape was finally catching up, and he didn't know if he had the strength to face it again. Then his expression hardened into something Evelyn had never seen before, something cold and capable and absolutely certain. "We fortify," he said, "but not at Reese's place. Too exposed. We use the canyon pass at Black Ridge. Narrow approach, high ground on both sides. They come at us there, and we have the advantage." "That's 2 hours from here," Samuel protested. "We'd have to move everyone." "Then we move everyone. Livestock, supplies, anything worth protecting. We turn Black Ridge into a bottleneck." Cole looked at Evelyn. "Can you get word to the others?" "Yes." "Do it. Tell them to bring weapons, food for 3 days, and anything they can't afford to lose. We leave in 1 hour." Samuel nodded and rode off with his sons. The moment they were gone, Evelyn turned to Cole. "You've done this before, haven't you? Defended against raids?" "More times than I want to remember." "How bad is it going to get?" Cole met her eyes, and the honesty in them scared her more than any lie could have. "Bad. Hale's not coming to negotiate. He's coming to break us. And the only way we survive is if we're willing to be just as brutal back. I can do that." "I know. That's what worries me." Over the next hour, the ranch transformed into controlled chaos. Martha arrived with supplies from town. The Harrison brothers showed up with 3 wagons. Jacob Reese came with his family and enough ammunition to supply a small army. "Your father would be proud," Jacob told Evelyn as they loaded the last of the supplies. "Stubborn man, but honest. You got his best qualities." "And his worst ones," Evelyn said. "Those too. But sometimes the worst qualities are what keep you alive." By mid-afternoon, they'd moved 23 families to Black Ridge Canyon. The approach was exactly as Cole had described, a narrow pass between high rock walls, maybe 50 feet wide at the entrance, widening to 100 yards once you got inside. Defendable, dangerous for anyone trying to attack. Cole organized everything with military precision, rifles positioned on the high ground, water stored in the caves along the canyon walls, livestock corralled at the far end where they'd be protected. He moved through the group giving orders, and people listened because he spoke with the authority of someone who'd survived worse. "You're good at this," Evelyn told him as they checked the sightlines from the southern ridge. "I hate that I'm good at this. But you're doing it anyway, because you asked me to." He glanced at her. "I'd do a lot worse if you asked." The words should have sounded threatening. Instead, they just sounded tired. As sunset approached, the families gathered in the center of the canyon. Children huddled close to their mothers. Men checked their weapons with shaking hands. The fear was thick enough to taste. Jacob Reese stood up, coughing hard but steady. "Most of you know me. Know I'm not long for this world, but I'll be damned if I die watching rich men steal what good people built." He looked around at the gathered faces. "We didn't start this fight, but we're damn sure going to finish it." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Cole caught Evelyn's eye and gestured to the ridge. She followed him up, away from the others. "You should know something," he said once they were alone. "If Hale's men come in hard, if they push through our defenses, we'll hold them. But if we don't, if things go wrong, I need you to take the families and run. There's a trail at the north end of the canyon, leads up into the mountains. It's hidden, but I can show you. Get them out. Get them to safety." "What about you?" "I'll buy you time." Cole, Promise me, Evelyn." His voice was urgent. "If it comes down to choosing between fighting a losing battle and saving lives, you choose the lives. Promise." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him they'd stand together no matter what, but the look in his eyes stopped her. "I promise." "Thank you." The sun dropped below the horizon, painting the sky blood red, and in the fading light, they heard it. Horses. Lots of them. Cole grabbed the spyglass and scanned the approach. When he lowered it, his expression was grim. 30 riders, armed, moving slow, want us to see them coming." Evelyn's stomach clenched. "That's more than we thought." Hale's not taking chances. Below in the canyon, people were scrambling to positions. Mothers pulling children into the caves. Men taking up rifles they probably didn't know how to use properly. The Harrison brothers arguing about something. Martha standing with her arms crossed, looking fierce despite being 60 years old and armed with a shotgun. Vernon Hale's voice carried up from the canyon entrance, amplified somehow. "Mrs. Braddock, I know you're in there. This is your last chance. Send out the documents, take my buyout offer, and nobody gets hurt tonight." Cole looked at Evelyn. "Your call." She thought about her father, about the ranch, about 15 years of letters written by a lonely man who'd somehow found the strength to stay human through hell. "Tell him to go to hell," she said. Cole actually smiled. "My pleasure." He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted down, "The lady says you can shove your offer straight up your—" Gunfire cut him off. Not aimed shots. Warning fire. Bullets ricocheting off rock, sending families diving for cover, children screaming, the sound echoing off the canyon walls until it was impossible to tell where anything was coming from. Then silence. "Next time we aim lower," Hale called out. "Send me the documents and the Alliance ringleaders. You have 10 minutes to decide." Cole's hand found Evelyn's. Still your call. We fight. All right then. He kissed her, fast and hard and desperate. Then he was moving down the ridge, shouting orders, positioning people, transforming frightened ranchers into something resembling a defensive line. Evelyn stayed on the high ground, rifle ready, watching Hale's men organize below. She could see their confidence, the way they moved like this was already over. They thought they were dealing with scared farmers who'd break at the first real violence. They were wrong. The second volley came exactly 10 minutes later, but this time the ranchers fired back. The battle for Black Ridge Canyon lasted 3 hours. It was brutal, chaotic, nothing like the organized warfare Cole had known in the militia. Just desperate people fighting to protect what was theirs against men who thought money made them invincible. Hale's riders tried to push through the narrow entrance. Cole's positioning forced them into a kill zone where numbers didn't matter. They tried to flank around the sides. The canyon walls were too steep. They tried to wait it out. The ranchers had 3 days of supplies and nothing to lose. But they kept coming, kept pushing. And slowly, inevitably, the defensive line started cracking. William Chen took a bullet in the shoulder. One of the Harrison brothers went down hard and didn't get up. Jacob Reese's oldest son got hit in the leg, screaming. The line contracted, pulled back, gave ground. Cole was everywhere, covering gaps, shouting orders, firing with the kind of cold precision that only came from experience. Evelyn watched him move and finally understood what he'd meant. He'd become something hard and dangerous again, and he hated it. But he was doing it anyway because she'd asked. Around midnight, the attack finally broke. Not because Hale's men ran out of ammunition or courage, but because 3 riders appeared on the ridge behind Hale's position, the territorial marshal and 2 deputies, drawn by reports of gunfire. The marshal rode down into the chaos with his badge visible and his gun drawn, and told everyone to stand down or face federal charges. Hale's men scattered like roaches when the light comes on. Vernon Hale himself tried to argue, tried to claim he was defending his legitimate property interests. But the marshal had seen the documents Evelyn distributed, knew what this really was. You can explain it to a judge, Mr. Hale. Right now, you're coming with me. As they led him away, Hale looked up at where Evelyn stood on the ridge and smiled. Cold. Promising. This isn't over. Then he was gone, and the canyon fell silent except for the sound of wounded men groaning and children crying and people trying to process what had just happened. They'd won, maybe, for now. But everyone knew Hale was right. This wasn't over. Cole found Evelyn an hour later. He was covered in rock dust and powder burns, and there was blood on his hands that she hoped wasn't his. Casualties? She asked. 4 wounded, none critical. We were lucky. Lucky, Evelyn repeated. The word felt obscene given what they'd just survived. Yeah. Cole sat down heavily beside her. We should move everyone back to their properties at first light. Set up watches. Hale's going to make bail, and when he does, I know. They sat in silence, watching the fires burn low and families trying to settle their terrified children. I'm sorry, Cole said finally. For what? For dragging you into this. For bringing violence back into my life. For... He stopped, searching for words. For being exactly what I spent 15 years trying not to be. Evelyn looked at him. This man who'd carried her memory through darkness, who'd come back when she needed him, who'd just fought to protect her and everyone else without hesitation. You're not what you think you are, she said. You don't know what I am. I read the letters, remember? I know exactly what you are. She reached for his hand. You're someone who fights to stay decent even when the world makes it hard. Someone who protects people who can't protect themselves. Someone who keeps promises even when they cost everything. Cole's eyes were wet. That's not enough. I killed 2 men tonight, Evelyn. Maybe 3. I stopped counting. To protect children. To protect families. That's different. Is it? Yes. She squeezed his hand. And you know it is. You're just too tired to see it right now. They sat together while the night wore on and the canyon slowly settled into exhausted sleep. And for the first time since Cole had arrived at her ranch a month ago, Evelyn felt something shift inside her chest. Not love. Not yet. But something close. Something that felt like understanding, like partnership. Like maybe, just maybe, this strange marriage built on desperation and old memories could become something real, if they survived long enough to find out. Dawn came cold and pale. People started packing up, preparing to return to their properties. The alliance had held through the night, but everyone knew it was fragile. Fear and exhaustion were already pulling at the edges. Martha found Evelyn helping load supplies. What now? Now we take the fight to Hale. No more defense. No more waiting for him to come at us. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Cole appeared looking like he hadn't slept. The marshal wants to talk to you, says it's important. The marshal was a weathered man named Carson, who'd seen 30 years on the frontier and looked exhausted by all of it. Mrs. Braddock, I wanted you to know, Hale made bail this morning. He's already back in Denver, and he's got lawyers working on having the federal charges dismissed. Evelyn's stomach sank. So last night meant nothing. I didn't say that. What I said is that Hale's got resources, but so do you now. Carson handed her a document. That's a federal injunction, freezes all land transactions in Cedar Valley until the ownership disputes are resolved through proper legal channels. No more buying, selling, or forcing people out. Everything stops until a judge sorts it. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. But it gives you time. Time to build your case, gather evidence, find allies. He looked at her seriously. You made this a public fight, Mrs. Braddock. That was smart. Keep it public. Keep pressure on. Make it too expensive for Hale to keep pushing. After he left, Evelyn stared at the injunction, trying to figure out what she felt. Relief, exhaustion, fear that this was just delaying the inevitable. It's something, Cole said beside her. More than we had yesterday. It's not enough. It's a start. Over the next 2 weeks, the valley tried to return to normal. People went back to their ranches, rebuilt what had been damaged, tried to pretend life could continue. But everyone felt it, the weight of knowing this was just a pause, not an ending. Evelyn threw herself into work, repairing fences, managing livestock, organizing the alliance meetings where they planned next steps, anything to avoid thinking about what came next. Cole worked beside her, silent and steady. They didn't talk about the kiss during the battle, didn't talk about the letters or what any of it meant, just worked, because work was simpler than feelings. But 3 weeks after Black Ridge, everything changed again. A rider came from Denver with news that made Evelyn's blood run cold. Vernon Hale was organizing a massive cattle auction in the capital, the biggest in territorial history. Every major buyer, banker, and landowner in the region would attend. It was designed to be a show of power, proof that Hale's business empire was untouchable despite the legal challenges. And he'd sent personal invitations to every rancher in Cedar Valley, a deliberate insult. Come watch me succeed while you drown in legal fees. It's a trap, Martha said when Evelyn showed her the invitation. Has to be. He wants you angry. Wants you to do something stupid. Maybe. Or maybe it's an opportunity. For what? To burn him down in front of everyone who matters. Cole looked at her sharply. What are you thinking? Evelyn spread the documents on the table. The forged land grants. The evidence from Canyon Ridge. Jacob Reese's historical records. Everything they'd gathered. We go to the auction, and we expose him publicly, not in some courtroom where he can delay and manipulate, in front of the entire frontier business community. We destroy his reputation so completely that nobody will do business with him again. That's insane, Martha said. Even if you got in, Hale would never let you speak. He'd have you thrown out. Then we make sure he can't. Evelyn looked at Cole. You said you worked freight companies, supply routes. You know how these auctions work? Some. Could you get us inside, past security? Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Yes. But Evelyn, if we do this, if we confront Hale on his home territory, there's no walking it back. He'll come at us with everything, legal and otherwise. I know. People could die. People have already died, and more will die if we don't stop him. Evelyn's voice was steel. I'm done playing defense, Cole. I'm done waiting for him to destroy us piece by piece. We take this fight to him, or we lose everything anyway. Cole studied her face, and something like pride flickered in his expression. All right then. When's the auction? 3 weeks. Then we've got 3 weeks to prepare. He stood, already planning. We'll need allies in Denver, people who hate Hale or have their own reasons to want him gone. We need to make sure the right people hear what we're saying, and we need an escape route because Hale's not going to let us just walk out afterward. Can you arrange all that? I can try. Over the next 3 weeks, Cole made quiet trips to Denver, building connections, finding the handful of businessmen and politicians who'd been burned by Hale over the years and wanted revenge, mapping escape routes, planning for every contingency. Evelyn used the time to perfect their case. She organized the evidence, prepared testimony, coached witnesses. This was going to be one shot. It had to be perfect. Martha thought they were both insane. Jacob Reese said it was the bravest damn thing he'd seen in 40 years. Samuel Ortiz wanted to come with them. Cole refused. Too dangerous. Too many variables. The night before they left for Denver, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She stood on the porch watching the stars and thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Cole found her there around midnight. "You should rest." "Can't." He leaned against the railing beside her. "Second thoughts? Third and fourth thoughts? Maybe fifth?" She looked at him. "You ever regret coming back here? Regret getting tangled up in all this?" "Every day," he said honestly, "and not once." "That doesn't make sense." "No, but it's true anyway." He was quiet for a moment. "Whatever happens in Denver, I want you to know something." "What?" "That winter 15 years ago? Working here? It wasn't just about you being kind. It was about your whole family, your father teaching me honest work. Your mother, before she got sick, making sure the hands had warm meals. The way this place felt like it mattered. Like the people here cared about doing things right." His voice roughened. "I spent 15 years trying to find that feeling again, and I never did. Until I came back." Evelyn felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Cole, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "Just wanted you to know. Whatever happens tomorrow, coming back here was worth it. You're worth it." He started to walk away and Evelyn caught his arm. "Wait." He turned, and she kissed him. Not desperate like during the battle. Slow, deliberate. A choice made with clear eyes and full awareness. When she pulled back, Cole looked stunned. "What was that for?" "For being worth it too," Evelyn said. "For standing beside me. For being exactly what I needed, even when I didn't know I needed it." Cole's hands came up to frame her face, gentle and uncertain. "Evelyn, I know. You wrote it all down, remember?" She smiled, sad and fierce. "And I'm starting to think maybe I feel the same way. I don't know yet. But I want to find out if we survive tomorrow." "When we survive tomorrow," Cole corrected. "Optimist. Realist. I've survived worse odds." They stood together in the darkness, holding on to each other, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. One way or another, the auction that would decide their future was waiting, and Vernon Hale had no idea what was coming. They left for Denver before dawn, riding hard through country that grew less familiar with each mile. The ranch disappeared behind them, and Evelyn tried not to think about whether she'd see it again. Cole rode beside her, silent and watchful, the saddlebags carrying their evidence weighing heavy against his horse's flank. The journey took 4 days. 4 days of cold camps and minimal conversation, and the growing awareness that they were riding toward something that could end them both. On the third night, camped in a canyon that offered some shelter from the wind, Cole finally broke the silence that had settled between them since that kiss on the porch. "There's something you should know about Denver." Evelyn looked up from the fire. "What?" "I've got a reputation there. Not a good one." He poked at the flames with a stick, not meeting her eyes. "The militia work I did. Some of it was in Denver, protecting freight shipments, breaking up labor disputes. I hurt people, made enemies. So if anyone recognizes me, it could complicate things, make it harder to move around unnoticed." Evelyn studied his profile in the firelight. "You're saying we should split up when we get there?" "I'm saying you might be safer without me." "Cole, I mean it, Evelyn. Vernon Hale's dangerous, but he's not the only dangerous man in that city. And some of the people who have reason to hate me are worse than him." She moved closer, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Then I guess we'll deal with them together, because I'm not doing this without you." Cole finally looked at her. "That's a mistake." "Probably. I seem to be making a lot of those lately." She managed a small smile. "But this one's mine to make. They reached Denver on the fourth day as the sun was setting, painting the city in shades of copper and shadow. It was bigger than Evelyn had imagined, sprawling and loud and full of people who moved with the kind of purpose that came from having somewhere important to be. She'd never felt more out of place in her life. Cole led them to a boarding house on the edge of town, the kind of place that didn't ask questions as long as you paid in advance. The woman who ran it looked at Cole with recognition that made Evelyn's stomach clench. "Braddock, didn't expect to see you back here." "Mrs. Chen, been a while." 5 years. The woman's eyes were hard. "You here for trouble?" "Just passing through. That's what they all say." But she took Cole's money and gave them a key. "Room's upstairs, keep your heads down. City's meaner than it used to be." Their room was small and spare. One bed, a wash basin, a window that looked out onto an alley. Evelyn set down her bag and tried not to think about the sleeping arrangements. Cole noticed her hesitation. "I can take the floor. Don't be stupid. The bed's big enough for both of us." She said it matter of fact, like it was the most practical thing in the world, but her heart was hammering. They were married. Had been for months now, but this felt different, deliberate. That night they lay on opposite sides of the bed, carefully not touching, both pretending to sleep while the city noises filtered in through the thin walls. Around midnight, Evelyn finally gave up the pretense. "Cole? Yeah? Tell me about the people you hurt here, the ones who might recognize you." He was quiet for a long moment. "There was a strike at one of the rail yards. Workers wanted better pay, safer conditions. The company hired my outfit to break it up. We did. Violently." His voice was flat. 3 men ended up in the hospital. 1 lost an eye. I was the one who did it." Evelyn's chest tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you should know who you're standing beside, what I'm capable of." "I already know what you're capable of. I saw it at Black Ridge." "That was different. That was protection." "And this wasn't?" "This was money, pure and simple. I did it because they paid me, not because it was right." Cole turned his head to look at her in the darkness. "I'm not a good man, Evelyn. I've tried to be. But the proof's in what I've done, not what I've wanted." Evelyn thought about the letters. 15 years of a man fighting to stay decent through circumstances that would have broken most people. "You're better than you think you are." "You keep saying that. Doesn't make it true." "No. But maybe believing it is what matters." She reached across the space between them and found his hand. Cole's fingers tightened around hers, and they lay like that until sleep finally came. Morning brought reality crashing back. The auction was in 2 days. They had work to do. Cole's contacts in the city turned out to be a strange collection of people. A newspaper editor who hated Hale for killing a corruption story, a banker who'd been squeezed out of a deal, a lawyer who'd watched Hale manipulate the courts one too many times. None of them were doing this out of goodness. They all had their own reasons for wanting Hale destroyed. "Politics makes strange allies," the editor, a sharp-eyed woman named Grace Morrison, told them over coffee in a backroom office. "You give me documentation I can print, I'll make sure every paper in the territory runs it the same day as your little auction scene." "Why would you help us?" Evelyn asked. "Because Hale killed my brother, indirectly. My brother ran a small ranch near Colorado Springs. Hale wanted the land. My brother refused to sell. 3 months later, my brother was dead from what the coroner called an accident. Fell off his horse, broke his neck." Grace's smile was cold. "Except my brother had been riding since he was 6 years old. He didn't fall. He was pushed." Evelyn slid the documents across the table. "Everything's here. Forged land grants, bribery records, witness testimony. It's all documented." Grace leafed through them, her expression sharpening. "This is good, really good. Where'd you get the bribery records?" "Jacob Reese. He's been documenting Hale's operation for years. Kept everything. Smart man." Grace looked up. "You know Hale's going to come after you hard for this, right? The auction's one thing, but publishing this? This is war." "I know." "And you're willing to risk it?" "I already lost my father. Already watched Hale try to destroy everything my family built. What else have I got to lose?" Grace studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. I'll have this ready to run the morning after the auction. Give you a day's head start before the real storm hits." The next 36 hours blurred together, meeting with allies, refining their plan, Cole teaching Evelyn how to move through crowds unnoticed, how to read a room for threats, how to identify the fastest exits. All the skills he'd learned surviving dangerous places. The night before the auction, Evelyn stood at the window of their boarding house room and watched the city settle into uneasy sleep. Behind her, she could hear Cole checking their gear one more time, making sure everything was ready. "You ever think about what happens after?" she asked without turning around. "If we actually pull this off?" "Sometimes." "What do you think about?" Cole was quiet for a moment. "Going back to the ranch, working the land, maybe building something that lasts instead of just surviving." He paused. "With you, if you wanted that." Evelyn turned to look at him. "And if I don't? Then I'd still go back, still work the land, just alone." "You'd be okay with that?" "No, but I'd do it anyway." Cole met her eyes. "I told you from the start, I'm not asking you for anything you don't want to give. That hasn't changed." Evelyn crossed the room and stood in front of him. "What if what I want keeps changing? What if I don't know what I want yet?" "Then we figure it out as we go." She kissed him then, harder than before, with all the fear and uncertainty and desperate hope she'd been carrying. Cole's hands came up to her waist, steadying her, and for a moment the auction and Hale and all of it disappeared. There was just this, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage trying to build something worth protecting. When they finally pulled apart, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "We're going to survive tomorrow," he said quietly. "Whatever it takes. Promise?" "Promise." The auction house was the largest building Evelyn had ever seen. 3 stories of brick and glass, with columns out front like it was trying to be a bank or a courthouse. People streamed in through the main entrance, all expensive clothes and confident voices. The Frontier's wealthy elite gathering to do business. Cole led her around to a side entrance where a man he'd paid off the day before let them slip through without questions. They moved through service corridors, past kitchens where workers prepared food for the reception afterward, up narrow stairs to the gallery level. "We'll watch from up here," Cole explained. "Wait for the right moment. When Hale takes the podium to address the crowd, you go down. I'll cover the exits in case his security tries to remove you. And if they do, then I stop them. Without killing anyone." Cole's expression was grim. "I'll try." The auction floor below was already filling. Evelyn counted close to 200 people, ranchers, businessmen, bankers, territorial officials, the kind of gathering that could make or break fortunes. Vernon Hale stood near the front, shaking hands and smiling like he owned the world. Which, in a lot of ways, he did. Watching him move through the crowd with such ease made Evelyn's blood boil. This man had killed her father, had tried to steal her land, had terrorized dozens of families, and here he was being treated like royalty. "Easy," Cole murmured beside her. "Don't let him see you angry. He'll use it." The auction started promptly at noon. A series of cattle lots. Each one announced and bid on with the casual efficiency of people trading in thousands of dollars like it was pocket change. Evelyn watched Hale dominate the bidding, driving up prices, squeezing out smaller buyers, showing everyone exactly how much power he wielded. After 2 hours, the auctioneer called a brief recess before the final lots. Hale took the podium, preparing to address the crowd. "This is it," Cole said. "You ready?" Evelyn's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists. "Ready." She made her way down the gallery stairs, heart hammering so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. The crowd was milling around, talking business, paying half attention as Hale began speaking about market conditions and opportunities. Evelyn stepped out onto the auction floor. For a moment, nobody noticed. Then someone near the front turned and saw her, nudged his neighbor. The attention rippled outward like a wave. Hale stopped mid-sentence and looked at her. His expression flickered, surprise, then anger, then that cold smile she'd seen before. "Mrs. Braddock, what an unexpected pleasure. I'm afraid this is a private event." "Actually, it's public." Evelyn's voice carried farther than she'd expected. "Says so on the invitation. Any interested party can attend. Nevertheless, I don't recall inviting you." "You invited every rancher in Cedar Valley. I'm a rancher in Cedar Valley." She walked forward, and the crowd parted around her. "And I've got something everyone here needs to hear." Hale's security started moving, but Cole appeared from the gallery entrance, positioning himself between them and Evelyn. The guards hesitated, recognizing him from somewhere, uncertain. "I think we can let the lady speak," Cole said quietly. For a minute, Evelyn reached the front and turned to face the crowd. 200 faces staring at her, some curious, some annoyed, some already dismissing her as a distraction. She pulled out the documents and held them up. "My name is Evelyn Braddock. My family's owned land in Cedar Valley for 3 generations. 2 months ago, Vernon Hale tried to steal it using forged land grants and bribed officials." She raised her voice over the murmurs starting to ripple through the room. "Everything I'm saying is documented. The fake surveys, the false claims, the pattern of theft that's targeted dozens of families across the Northern Territories." "This is slander," Hale said smoothly. "Security, remove her." But the crowd was listening now. Evelyn could see it, the shift in attention, the way people were actually looking at the papers in her hand. "The documents I'm holding prove that the Western Frontier Development Corporation has systematically defrauded landowners for the past 6 years. Survey dates that don't match historical records. Signatures from officials who were dead when the documents were supposedly filed. A paper trail leading straight back to Vernon Hale's organization." Hale's smile was gone now. "You have no authority to make these accusations." "No, but the federal marshal does, and he's already opened an investigation based on this evidence, and the newspapers will have copies of everything tomorrow morning." Evelyn looked around the room. "So everyone here doing business with Hale should know you're partnering with a fraud and a thief. And when this all comes out, you'll be tied to it too." The room erupted, people shouting questions, others demanding to see the documents, Hale's lawyers trying to shut it down, the auctioneer banging his gavel for order, and Vernon Hale standing at the podium, looking at Evelyn with pure murder in his eyes. "You're making a very serious mistake, Mrs. Braddock. You keep saying that. I keep not caring." Hale made a gesture, and his security guards moved in fast. But Cole was faster. He stepped between them and Evelyn, and something about the way he held himself made the guards stop cold. "Gentlemen," Cole said quietly, "the lady's leaving voluntarily. No need for anything unpleasant." The lead guard, a thick-necked man with scars on his knuckles, recognized Cole. Evelyn saw it in his face, fear and old grudges mixing together. "Braddock, should have known you'd be involved in this. Just doing my job, Marcus. Same as you." "Your job these days is helping thieves?" Cole's expression didn't change. "My job is protecting my wife. Now step aside." For a long, tense moment, nobody moved. Then Marcus stepped back and the other guards followed his lead, creating a path to the exit. Evelyn grabbed Cole's hand and they moved, walking fast but not running, past the shouting crowd and Hale's furious face and out into the afternoon sunlight. They'd made it maybe 2 blocks before Cole pulled her into an alley. "We need to move. Now. Hale's not going to let this stand." "Where do we go?" "There's a stable 3 streets over. Horses are already saddled and waiting. We ride north, take the mountain pass, circle back to Cedar Valley through the high country." "How long?" 4 days if the weather holds. Maybe 5. They ran. Behind them, Evelyn could hear shouting, horses being brought around, Hale's men organizing pursuit. But Cole moved through the city like he'd memorized every street and alley, taking turns that seemed random but always led forward, always kept them ahead of whoever was following. They reached the stable just as the sun started dropping toward the horizon. The horses were there exactly as Cole had arranged, and they mounted without stopping to catch their breath. "North," Cole said, "fast as we can until we're clear of the city. Then we slow down and save the horses' strength." They rode. For the first hour, Evelyn kept looking back, expecting to see pursuit. But Cole had planned the route well. By the time they reached the northern edge of Denver, the city had faded behind them and the road ahead was empty. That night they camped in a narrow canyon, no fire, eating cold rations in silence. Evelyn's hands wouldn't stop shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her exhausted and terrified and trying to process what they'd just done. "Did it work?" she asked finally. "Or did I just make everything worse?" Cole looked at her across the darkness. "You exposed him in front of everyone who matters, planted doubt in the minds of his business partners, gave the newspapers ammunition, and you did it without getting killed." He paused. "I'd call that a win." "Hale's going to come after us." "Yes." "He might kill us." "He'll try." And you're okay with that? Cole moved closer, close enough that she could see his face in the starlight. Evelyn, I've spent 15 years trying to find something worth dying for. Something that mattered enough to risk everything, and I finally found it. He touched her face gently. So yes, I'm okay with it. Evelyn leaned into his touch, feeling tears she didn't want to shed burning behind her eyes. I don't want to die, Cole. I want to go home. I want to save the ranch and build something, and maybe... She stopped, not sure how to finish. Maybe what? Maybe figure out what this is between us. What it could be. Cole kissed her forehead. Then we'll survive, whatever it takes. They reached the mountain pass on the third day, exhausted and running on determination alone. The trail was narrow and treacherous, barely wide enough for the horses, with drop-offs that disappeared into darkness on one side. Cole led them higher, into country where the air was thin and cold and the silence felt heavy. They were maybe an hour from the summit when Evelyn heard it, hoofbeats behind them. Cole, I know, keep moving. But the riders were closing fast, and the trail offered nowhere to hide. Within minutes, Evelyn could see them, 5 men on good horses moving with purpose. Hale's men. Cole pulled them into a small widening in the trail where a rockfall created some cover. He dismounted and pulled out his rifle. Stay behind the rocks. If this goes bad, you ride. Don't wait for me. Just ride and don't look back. Cole, promise me, Evelyn. Before she could answer, the riders rounded the bend. They spread out across the trail, blocking any escape. The man in front was the one from the auction. Marcus. He looked at Cole with old hatred. Braddock. End of the line. Didn't have to be. You could have let us go. Not when Hale's offering $5,000 for the woman and her documents. Cole's rifle stayed level. She's not a bounty, Marcus. She's a person fighting for what's hers. Don't care. Money's money. Marcus gestured to the others. Take her. The riders dismounted and started forward, and Cole shot the ground in front of them. The crack of the rifle echoed off the canyon walls, impossibly loud. The horses spooked. The men scrambled back. Next one hits flesh, Cole said calmly. Your choice. Marcus's hand moved toward his gun. There's 5 of us, Braddock. 1 of you. Only need 1 bullet per person. I've got 6 rounds. Do the math. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then one of the riders, younger than the others, maybe 20, said, Marcus, I didn't sign up to get killed over some land dispute. Shut up. I'm serious. This is crazy. We're bounty hunters, not soldiers. 2 of the other men nodded agreement, the smart ones, Evelyn thought, the ones who valued their lives more than Hale's money. Marcus's face darkened. You're all cowards. We're practical, the young one said, and I'm out. He remounted and rode back down the trail. After a moment's hesitation, 2 others followed. That left Marcus and 1 other man, both too stubborn or too loyal to Hale to walk away. Cole's rifle didn't waver. Last chance, Marcus, right away. Nobody has to die today. Hale's not going to forget this. I'm counting on it. Marcus stared at them for a long moment. Then he spat on the ground and remounted. This isn't over, Braddock. It never is. The 2 men rode away and the mountain pass fell silent again. Evelyn realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out shakily. You would have shot them. Yes. Killed them. If they'd forced me to. Cole lowered the rifle and looked at her. I told you what I was capable of, Evelyn. I meant it. I know. She stood and crossed to him, putting her hand on his arm. But you gave them a choice first. That matters. Does it? Yes. They rode through the night, pushing the horses harder than they should have, knowing that Hale wouldn't stop with one failed attempt. By dawn, they'd cleared the summit and started the descent toward Cedar Valley. Home was maybe 8 hours away. They made it 6 before the ambush. It came from a side canyon they'd passed a dozen times before without incident. 4 riders appeared from behind a rockfall, cutting off the trail ahead. At the same moment, 3 more blocked the path behind. 7 men total, all armed, all positioned too well for this to be coincidence. Someone had been tracking them, waiting for the perfect spot. Cole swore under his breath. Evelyn, when I say run, you dig your heels in and don't stop for anything. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because dying together doesn't save the ranch. You living does. The riders closed in. The man leading them was older than the others, Gray-haired and cold-eyed. Professional. This wasn't some bounty hunter looking for quick money. This was someone who killed for a living. Mr. Braddock? Mrs. Braddock? Mr. Hale sends his regards. Cole's hand moved slowly toward his rifle. Tell Hale we're not interested in his regards. I'm afraid that's not an option. Mr. Hale wants the documents, and he wants you both to disappear, permanently. That's going to be a problem. The gray-haired man smiled. Only for you. Everything happened at once. Cole drew his rifle and fired, hitting one of the men behind them. Evelyn kicked her horse forward, trying to break through the line ahead. Someone grabbed her reins. She pulled her father's old pistol and fired without thinking, the recoil nearly knocking it from her hand, the man screaming and falling away. More gunfire. Cole fighting 3 men at once, somehow still on his horse. Evelyn's mare panicking, rearing, the world fragmenting into chaos and noise and terror. Then Cole was beside her, grabbing her reins, pulling both horses toward a gap in the rocks. They crashed through brush and over loose stone, the gunmen pursuing, bullets ricocheting off granite. Cole led them into a maze of canyons, turning randomly, using every trick he knew to lose their pursuers. For an hour they ran, until the horses were lathered and trembling, and Evelyn couldn't tell if they'd escaped or just delayed the inevitable. Finally, Cole pulled them into a narrow crevice barely wide enough for the horses. They dismounted and stood in the shadows, listening for pursuit. Evelyn looked down and saw blood on Cole's shirt. You're hit. Just a graze. Cole, I'm fine. But he winced when she touched his side, and his breathing was too shallow. Evelyn pulled his shirt aside and saw the wound. A bullet had carved a furrow across his ribs, deep enough to bleed badly but not life-threatening if they could stop the bleeding and prevent infection. We need to get you to a doctor. We need to get to the valley. Once we're there, we can worry about doctors. You're going to pass out from blood loss before we make it. Then I'll pass out. But we're not stopping. Cole's voice was firm despite the pain. We're too close, Evelyn. We can't stop now. She wanted to argue, wanted to force him to rest, but she knew he was right. Those men were still out there, still hunting. Stopping meant dying. So she tore strips from her shirt and bandaged his side as best she could, and they mounted up again and kept riding. The sun was setting when they finally saw the valley spread out below them, home, battered but still standing, waiting for them to return. They'd survived the auction, survived the pursuit, survived everything Hale had thrown at them. But looking at the blood soaking through Cole's bandages and thinking about the killers still tracking them, Evelyn knew the real battle was just beginning. They made it to the ranch just after full dark, Cole barely upright in the saddle, Evelyn holding his reins to keep him from falling. Martha was on the porch before they'd even dismounted, taking one look at the blood and running for Doc Harrison. Get him inside, Martha ordered. I'll fetch the doctor. Evelyn half-carried Cole into the house, his weight heavy against her side. He was conscious but fading, his skin clammy and too pale. She got him onto the kitchen table because it was closer than the bedroom and started cutting away his shirt to see the damage properly. The wound looked worse in lamplight. The bullet had carved deep, and the makeshift bandaging had only slowed the bleeding. Cole's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Don't you dare die on me, Evelyn said, pressing clean cloth against the wound. Not after everything. You hear me, Cole Braddock? Don't you dare. His eyes opened slightly. Wasn't planning on it. Good. Because I've got things to say to you, and you need to be alive to hear them. That a threat or a promise? Both. Doc Harrison arrived 20 minutes later, took one look at the wound, and started barking orders. Evelyn found herself boiling water and tearing sheets into strips while the doctor worked, trying not to look at how much blood there was. He's lucky, Harrison said finally, stitching the wound closed with practiced efficiency. Another inch to the left and it would have hit lung. As it is, he'll heal if infection doesn't set in, but he needs rest, real rest. No riding, no heavy work, nothing stupid for at least 2 weeks. Cole made a sound that might have been protest. I mean it, Braddock. You tear these stitches and you'll bleed out before I can get back here. Harrison looked at Evelyn. Keep him down. Use force if necessary. And if he develops fever, you send for me immediately. After the doctor left, Evelyn sat beside the table where Cole was trying very hard not to show how much pain he was in. 2 weeks, she said. Can't afford 2 weeks. Those men are still out there. Let them come. We've got the whole valley watching now. Martha's already spreading word. By morning, every rancher within 20 miles will know Hale sent killers after us, and they'll be ready. Cole closed his eyes. You should have left me in those canyons. Stop it! I'm serious, Evelyn. You could have made it back alone. Could have what? Lived the rest of my life knowing I abandoned you? Knowing I chose my own safety over yours? She leaned forward. That's not who I am, Cole. And you should know that by now. Something shifted in his expression. I do know. I'm not used to people choosing me. Then get used to it. They moved him to the bedroom once he was stable enough, and Evelyn sat watch through the night, changing bandages when they soaked through and checking for fever every hour. Around 3 a.m, Cole woke briefly and found her still there. You should sleep. I will, later. Evelyn? Hush. Save your strength. His hand found hers in the darkness. Thank you for not leaving me. Thank you for giving me something worth fighting for. He fell back asleep, and Evelyn sat holding his hand and thinking about everything that had changed since that first morning when Cole had shown up offering to save her ranch. She'd been drowning then, desperate and alone and running out of options. Now she was different, harder in some ways, stronger in others, and absolutely certain that what they'd built together, this strange partnership born from desperation, mattered more than she'd ever expected. The newspapers hit 3 days later, exactly as Grace Morrison had promised. Every major paper in the territory ran the story on page 1. Vernon Hale's empire of fraud, documented in exhaustive detail. The forged land grants, the bribed officials, the pattern of theft stretching back years. And right there in the center of it all, Evelyn's testimony from the auction. Martha brought the papers to the ranch, spreading them across the kitchen table with grim satisfaction. You did it! Burned him down in front of the whole territory. Evelyn scanned the articles, her heart pounding. Will it be enough? To destroy his business? Maybe. To stop him from coming after you? Martha shook her head. Men like Hale don't fold because of bad press. They double down. She was right. 2 days later, word came that Hale had posted a $10,000 bounty. Not for Evelyn alive, for proof of her death. And Cole's death. He wasn't even pretending anymore. This was murder for hire, advertised openly. The Valley responded with something Evelyn hadn't expected. Solidarity. Ranchers she barely knew showed up offering to help patrol the property. Samuel Ortiz organized rotating guard shifts. The Harrison brothers brought extra rifles and ammunition. Even families who'd been too scared to join the alliance before started showing up, looking ashamed but determined. Your father would have been proud, Jacob Reese told her, his voice rough from the consumption eating him alive. You united the Valley in a way nobody's done in 20 years. I didn't mean to unite anyone. I just wanted to save my ranch. That's why it worked. You weren't playing politics. You were just trying to survive. Jacob coughed hard. Sometimes that's what it takes. Someone too stubborn to know when they're beaten. Cole recovered slowly, frustrated by his body's weakness, but smart enough to listen when Doc Harrison threatened to restrain him to the bed. Evelyn spent the days managing the ranch and the nights sitting with Cole, talking about everything and nothing. Tell me about the timber camps, she said one evening. The real story, not the sanitized version. So Cole told her. About the brutal work and the men who died regularly and the way violence became so normal you stopped noticing it. About the winter he'd nearly frozen to death and the foreman who'd saved him for no reason except basic decency. About the loneliness that became so heavy, some men just walked into the woods and never came back. I thought about it once, he admitted. Just walking away and letting the wilderness take me. Seemed easier than fighting. What stopped you? The memory of your father teaching me how to properly shoe a horse. Sounds stupid, but he took the time. Showed me the right way to do it, explained why it mattered, and I thought, if a man like that exists in the world, maybe the world's worth staying in. Evelyn felt her throat tighten. My father wasn't perfect. He could be hard, stubborn as hell. I know, but he was decent. That mattered. They fell into silence, and Evelyn found herself thinking about decency, about how hard it was to maintain when the world kept trying to beat it out of you. Cole had managed it somehow, carried kindness through brutal places and come out the other side still trying to do right by people. That was worth more than all the money Vernon Hale would ever have. The attack came on a Tuesday morning 2 weeks after they'd returned from Denver. Evelyn was in the barn checking on a mare about to foal when she heard the shouting. She ran outside to see riders approaching fast. Not the 7 from the canyon ambush, but at least 15, maybe 20, all armed, all moving with military precision. Cole appeared from the house, still moving stiffly from his healing wound, rifle in hand. "Get everyone to defensive positions," he said calmly. "This is it." The Valley Alliance had prepared for this. Within minutes, ranchers were taking cover behind wagons and outbuildings, rifles aimed at the approaching force. It wasn't an army, but it was enough to make anyone think twice about attacking. The riders stopped at the property line, and Vernon Hale himself rode to the front. He looked different than he had at the auction, older, harder, like the public humiliation had stripped away the gentleman veneer and revealed something uglier underneath. "Mrs. Braddock," he called out, "I'm here to make you a final offer." "Not interested," Evelyn shouted back. "You should be, because the alternative is that my men burn this valley to the ground. Every ranch, every farm, everything you're trying to protect, all of it gone." Cole stepped forward. "You do that, and you'll have federal marshals crawling all over you. The newspaper's already made you a target. You want to add mass murder to the list?" Hale's smile was cold. "Who says there'd be witnesses? Fires happen on the frontier all the time. Tragic accidents." "There'd be witnesses," Cole said, "and you know it. That's why you're talking instead of shooting." For a moment, Hale just stared at them. Then he said, "I underestimated you, Braddock, and you, Mrs. Braddock. That was a mistake, but I'm a practical man. So here's what's going to happen. You give me the original documents, all of them. You sign a statement saying the accusations were exaggerated, and you sell me your ranch for fair market value. In exchange, I leave the valley alone. Everyone else keeps their land." "You're lying," Evelyn said. "Probably. But you'll never know for certain unless you refuse. And if you refuse, a lot of innocent people die. That blood's on your hands, not mine." It was a trap. Evelyn knew it. Hale would take the documents, take the ranch, and then come after the valley anyway, because that's who he was. But the alternative was immediate violence. People dying today instead of maybe dying later. She looked at Cole. He met her eyes and gave a tiny shake of his head. "Don't do it." Then Samuel Ortiz spoke up from his position behind a wagon. "We're not trading her for our safety, Hale. You want this valley, you're going to have to take it the hard way." A murmur of agreement rippled through the defenders. Jacob Reese, propped up against a fence post because he was too sick to stand unaided, added, "You made this a war, Hale. Don't be surprised when people fight back." Hale's expression darkened. "You're all fools. Dying for pride." "No," Evelyn said. "We're fighting for what's ours. There's a difference." For a long moment, nobody moved. The valley held its breath. Then horses appeared on the ridge behind Hale's force. Lots of them. Evelyn counted at least 30 riders, all wearing territorial marshal badges, led by Marshal Carson himself. Carson rode down the slope and positioned himself between Hale's men and the ranch. "Mr. Hale, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and about 15 other charges that federal prosecutors are very excited to pursue." Hale's face went white. "You have no authority. Federal warrant issued yesterday. Your lawyers can argue about authority at your trial." Carson gestured to his deputies. "Take him." What happened next happened fast. Hale tried to run. His men scattered. Some surrendered immediately. Others tried to fight and were subdued quickly. Within 20 minutes, the threat that had dominated the valley for months was in chains, being led away under federal custody. Evelyn stood watching it happen, hardly daring to believe it was real. Cole appeared beside her, wincing slightly from the movement. "It's over." "Is it? Or is this just another pause?" Grace Morrison's newspaper got the story to federal investigators. "They've been building a case for weeks. This time, it's real." He looked at her. "You won. Evelyn, you actually won." The words didn't feel real. Victory was supposed to feel bigger. Instead, Evelyn just felt exhausted and a little lost. She'd spent so long fighting that she didn't know what to do with peace. Over the following weeks, the full extent of Hale's crimes came out. The federal investigation uncovered fraud across 4 territories, involving hundreds of properties and millions of dollars. He'd been running the land theft operation for over a decade, using increasingly brazen tactics as he got away with it repeatedly. The trial became a spectacle. Newspapers covered every detail. Politicians used it to campaign on anti-corruption platforms. And slowly, the victims started getting their land back. The Mercer Ranch's deed was cleared within a month. The forged documents were formally invalidated. Evelyn owned the land free and clear, just like her grandfather had. But the victory felt hollow standing in the cemetery beside her father's grave, wishing he'd lived to see it. He knew, Cole said beside her, before he died. He knew you'd save it. He shouldn't have had to die hoping. He should have been here. I know. They stood in silence, and Evelyn thought about legacy, about what people left behind. Her grandfather had left land. Her father had left the determination to protect it. And she, what would she leave? The question kept her awake at night. 6 weeks after Hale's arrest, Evelyn found the final letter. It had been in the metal box all along, hidden behind the others in an envelope marked, "Only if I never came back." She opened it with shaking hands. The letter was recent, dated the week before Cole had first appeared at her ranch. Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means I died trying to help you. I want you to know it wasn't your fault. This was my choice, my decision. You never asked for it. I've spent 15 years trying to outrun the memory of that winter on your father's ranch, trying to become someone worthy of the kindness you showed me. And I failed, mostly. Became hard and violent and all the things I swore I wouldn't be. But I never forgot what decency looked like. Never forgot that people like you and your father exist. And when I heard you were in trouble, I couldn't stay away. Because if loving you from a distance was all life allowed me, I would have accepted it. But having the chance to stand beside you, to fight for something that mattered, felt like surviving a war I never thought I'd win. I don't expect you to love me back. Don't expect anything except maybe you'll remember that someone thought you were worth dying for. Because you are, Evelyn. You always were. Take care of the ranch. Build something good. Live the life your father wanted for you. And if you think of me sometimes, remember that you saved me long before I ever tried to save you. Cole. Evelyn read it 3 times before the tears came. Not sad tears exactly. Something more complicated. Grief for the lonely man who'd written this thinking he'd never see her again. Gratitude for the choice he'd made. And something deeper she was finally ready to name. Love. Not the desperate kind built on need. The quieter kind built on choice and understanding and the willingness to stand beside someone through hell. She found Cole in the barn, working despite Doc Harrison's orders to take it easy. He looked up when she entered, saw her face, and immediately set down the tool he'd been using. What's wrong? Evelyn held out the letter. I found this. In the box. Cole took it, read it, and went very still. I wrote that before I came back. Before I knew if you'd even let me help. I thought... He stopped. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. Evelyn, you said if loving me from a distance was all life allowed, you'd accept it. But what if life's allowing more than that now? What if I want more? Cole's expression shifted, hopeful and terrified at once. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you. The words came out stronger than she expected. Not because you saved my ranch, not because you fought for me, but because you're decent and stubborn, and you've spent 15 years trying to stay human in places that would have broken most people. Because you gave me a choice always, even when you wanted more. Because you're worth loving, Cole Braddock. And I'm done pretending I don't feel it. For a moment, Cole just stared at her. Then he crossed the distance between them and kissed her like a man who'd been holding his breath for 15 years and could finally exhale. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve this. Don't deserve you. Nobody deserves anything. We just decide what we're going to fight for and hope we're strong enough to keep it. Evelyn smiled. And I'm fighting for this. For us. If you want it. I've wanted it since I was 17 years old and didn't have the words to say it. Then stay. Not because I need saving, but because I choose you every day for as long as you'll have me. Cole's arms came around her, careful of his healing wound, but solid and real. That's going to be a very long time. Good. They stood in the barn, holding each other, while the afternoon light slanted through the gaps in the wood and the ranch settled into the kind of quiet that came from safety instead of fear. For the first time in months, maybe years, Evelyn felt like she could breathe properly. The work of rebuilding took months. The ranch needed repairs after years of neglect. The alliance needed structure and leadership to prevent future threats. The valley needed to learn how to function without fear. Evelyn and Cole did it together. He taught ranchers how to improve their defensive positions without turning into armed camps. She organized cooperative buying to get better prices on supplies. They worked with lawyers to make sure every family's land deed was properly documented and backed up with federal records. Slowly, the valley transformed, not into something perfect, but into something stronger. Jacob Reese died that winter, peacefully in his sleep. At his funeral, his oldest son told Evelyn that his father's last words had been about how proud he was to see the valley united. He said you reminded him why he came west in the first place, to build something worth protecting. The words stayed with Evelyn. That's what they were all doing, really, building something worth protecting. Not just land or property, but community, the kind of place where people looked out for each other, where decency mattered more than profit. Spring came, and with it, new challenges. A harsh winter had killed livestock across the territory. Prices were unstable. Some families were struggling again. But this time, when trouble came, the valley didn't fracture. They pooled resources, shared what they had, helped each other survive, because they'd learned something through the fight with hail. Alone, they were vulnerable. Together, they were strong enough to weather almost anything. One evening in late April, Evelyn stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and thought about her father, about what he'd built and what she was building and how it was both the same and different. Cole appeared beside her carrying 2 cups of coffee. "What are you thinking about?" "Legacy, what we leave behind." "And?" "I think maybe it's not about the land, not really. It's about what the land represents, security, belonging, the freedom to build a life on your own terms." She looked at him. "My father left me that, and I want to leave it to whoever comes next." Cole's hand found hers. "Sounds like a good plan." They stood together as the light faded and the stars came out one by one. And Evelyn thought about journeys, how hers had started with desperation and a stranger's offer and the grinding certainty that she was going to lose everything, how it had led through violence and fear and fights she'd never expected to survive, how it had ended here, standing beside a man who'd spent 15 years carrying the memory of her kindness and had come back to return it 1,000 times over. That was worth more than all the land in the valley, worth more than victory or vindication or any of the things she'd thought mattered. Because in the end, what mattered was choice. The choice to keep fighting when quitting would have been easier. The choice to stand beside someone even when it cost everything. The choice to build something decent in a world that often rewarded the opposite. 6 months later, Evelyn discovered she was pregnant. The news came as a shock. She was 30, had never thought much about children, had been too busy surviving to imagine a future that included them. But standing in the barn watching Cole gentle a young horse, she could suddenly picture it. A child running through these fields, learning to ride, growing up with land under their feet and the knowledge that their family had fought to keep it. Legacy, she thought, not in land or money, but in teaching the next generation that some things were worth fighting for, that decency mattered, that you could be hard when necessary and still choose kindness when possible. When she told Cole, he went very still. Then he pulled her close and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "We're going to be okay," he said. "All of us. I promise." And looking around at the ranch they'd saved and the valley they'd helped unite and the life they were building together, Evelyn believed him. Not because everything would be easy. Life on the frontier was never easy. There would be hard winters and failed harvests and 100 different challenges she couldn't predict, but they'd face them together. And that made all the difference. The final piece of Vernon Hale's story came a year later. He was convicted on 14 federal charges and sentenced to 20 years in territorial prison. His business empire was dismantled, his assets seized and used to compensate victims. Some of his former associates tried to continue his work under different names, but the valley was ready now. They had structure, communication, and most importantly, they had people willing to fight back. The Mercer Ranch thrived. Not spectacularly. Not without effort, but steadily, season by season, growing into something stable and good. And on a cold November morning, Evelyn gave birth to a daughter. They named her Sarah, after Evelyn's mother. The baby was loud and stubborn and perfect. Cole held her with the kind of careful reverence that came from knowing exactly how fragile good things could be. And watching him rock their daughter to sleep, Evelyn thought about the letters. 15 years of lonely confessions written by a man who thought he'd never deserve happiness. He'd been wrong. They both had. Happiness wasn't something you earned. It was something you built, piece by piece, choice by choice, through all the ugly, brutal, difficult parts of life. And standing in the house her grandfather built, holding her husband's hand while their daughter slept, Evelyn finally understood what her father had meant about the land choosing you. It wasn't about geography or property lines. It was about belonging, about finding the place and the people worth fighting for, about digging in and refusing to let go no matter what tried to tear you away. The land hadn't chosen her. She'd chosen it, every single day, just like she'd chosen Cole and the valley, and this life they were building together. That was the real victory. Not defeating Hale or saving the ranch or any of the things that had seemed so important in the moment. The victory was this: standing in the middle of something good she'd helped create, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also knowing she had the strength and the partnership to face them. Outside, the first snow of winter started falling. Inside, the fire burned warm and steady. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Evelyn Braddock felt at peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was real and hard-won and absolutely worth protecting. And that, she thought, was enough. More than enough. It was everything.